steals the spot. All right, that, of course, is the Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual. A look at the All-State Sugar Bowl, Georgia versus Baylor. How about both of these teams coming up on the short end of their conference championship games? But the Dogs' lone losses are to LSU and, of course, that anomaly against South Carolina. Both of Baylor's losses to Oklahoma. Greg, the most intriguing aspect of this game to you is what?
I just want to see, at some point this season, and you only have 60 more minutes, I want to see Georgia's offense start to look like they have the talent that they have. Because they have good personnel. They have a great offensive line. They have a veteran quarterback. And Jake Fromm, frankly, has not had a very good season. He hasn't been as accurate, hasn't been as decisive, and hasn't had the same velocity on the throws that we saw in previous years. I think part of that has to do with the rapport that he has with the wide receivers, or lack thereof. So it's really been concerning. Now, you get a team that's coming in that really prides himself on the defense side. Baylor's really good on defense, and they're going to make life really difficult for Georgia. And if you look at how Georgia played last year in the Sugar Bowl game, it was an embarrassing performance in a lot of ways.
I'm glad you mentioned
an embarrassing performance.
Because this is going to be one of the best coaching jobs, or the worst coaching jobs Kirby Smart has ever done, because it's the second time around that you're facing a Big 12 team. And we talk about Big 12 stinks, no defense, etc. You laid an egg last year. Remember, it was, oh, Texas is back. They were so far from back. They just weren't good. Georgia laid an egg. Now this year, how are you going to get your guys motivated? Because good coaches motivate their players. They find ways. Look at Dabo Swinney, all up and down the media talking about they're an underdog. They're undefeated, defending national champs. Somehow he has everyone believing they're an underdog. What is Kirby Smart going to do to elevate his team and get them motivated to play against
This
Baylor?
would be a little bit of an old school kind of smack you in the mouth football game. You alluded to Baylor's defense. Georgia's just as good. Talked about it at the beginning of the show how good both of these defenses are, how well coached they are. They make you play from such a deficit offensively, right? Like, Georgia's going to have to do something on offense because their defense is going to slow down whatever Baylor is able to do offensively, Charlie Brewer and Denzel Mims. But we've seen this Baylor defense a couple times on national TV have some really strong performance, like really good moments, right? And so it'll be a little bit of an old school football game. I think there's a lot of questions to the football game. Is Matt Rule going to be at Baylor? I mean, that is a fair question to ask right now with the job has he done. Is Jake Fromm going to make a decision on the NFL before the football game?
He better stay.
Is Lawrence Cager going to play? What's his health? What's Blaylock's health? Like, there's a lot of...
Torn hamstring, he's not going to play in the game.
So, I mean, there's layers to this with this football game. You can make the case that this is a really big game for Georgia for next year.
For sure.
You know, like 100%. They better go play well for Kirby Smart's football team building into next year.
You mentioned the name Matt Rule. Let's assume for a minute that he stays. I mean, think about the depths of where this program was to the fact that they're playing in this level of game. I mean, it's remarkable what he's done in just a short amount of time.
1-11.
Coach of the year.
He started 1-11 first year.
He is the coach of the year.
100%.
All respect to a bunch of other coaches, what Matt Rule has done, and in the moments where he had to go play really good. I mean, pushed Oklahoma to the brink with their third-string quarterback, or third-string quarterback at some point this past weekend. So, Coach of the Year.
You shuddered when Dan was saying, does Jake Fromm come back? I mean, what kind of a challenge is he going to face against this Baylor D?
With the Baylor, they don't have to do anything special against Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm has just been flat out inaccurate. He just doesn't throw the ball well. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's injured. Listen, what I see every time, I'm like, what the hell, Jake Fromm? Every time I'm looking, I'm like, what's going on?
If you're gonna knock Tua sometimes, man, his receivers are so great, then we have to give Jake Fromm a little bit of leniency because his receivers have been so young and so underperforming as well.
And so inconsistent. If you just look at the South Carolina game, and we pin those 4 turnovers on Jake Fromm. Well, one, the receiver slipped inside, should have been outside. One, hits him right in the face mask, tipped.
I'm not talking about that game. Let's go back to 48% completion.
In weather twice.
Correct.
So let's take that into account. He did have to play against A&M in bad weather, and earlier in the season against Kentucky in horrendous weather. So
I'm talking about the last 4 weeks. He has been under 50% completion.
Yes.
We can talk about weather. We can talk about weather.
Jake Fromm has been a massively
this is what happened.
Quarterback.
Yes, he's been underperforming. When you watch him play, and I've seen him make those same throws.
Correct.
So that's my issue. You've made these throws. You've made them in tight windows. When you lost to Florida last year, Jake Fromm went on a tear. And we were like, oh, my gosh, he has arrived, finally. This year, he started off well. Then it's just been a decline, a steady decline. And then you watch and you're like, you made these throws. What's going on, Jake Fromm? I hear about the receivers. But I also know you're throwing the spots on the field. So if you're telling me that the receivers aren't getting to the spots,
if you don't trust
that's
that they're going to
different.
get there, it's hard to throw them to those spots. That's the problem.
I hear a lot lot of excuses for a quarterback that should be playing a lot better.
I'm saying that it's really hard to play quarterback by yourself. And when there are guys that you don't trust out there on the perimeter, it's really hard to cut it loose and anticipate throws.
We'll see. I can't wait to see the game. I can't wait to see the game.
In John's defense, I do think this is a big game for him. I really do. I think that whether he decides to go or not, I think it's a really big, likely, right? But I think this game will go a long way in quieting to some of the conversation that we're having into the offseason, because some of their young receivers will obviously be a year older.
And knowing Field, he's always going to be linked to Justin Fields, and he's had such a great year, and there's already people that have questioned, well, did they pick the wrong quarterback? He needs to go out, play well, get some momentum created, because you know where Georgia's going to be next year? Right back in this exact same position. They're going to have a really good team coming back and likely have a chance to make a playoff run.
Yeah.
All-State Sugar Bowl ought to be a fun watch. You know what else is always a fun watch?
What?
When Ed Ogeron's on TV and he's breaking down his team 30